Hey,
All right, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk Michigan National Championship Edition. Dan, how are you, man?
um, apologies for the incoming f bomb, but let's fucking go, dude.
Oh, let's go. Let's fucking go. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, this has been, if you followed this podcast at all, this podcast started in COVID. And we've talked about this journey a few different times, but Michigan is a two-win team, and 2021 comes around, and this team is different. 2022 comes around, this team is the same, and then 2022 or 2023 is this team's different again. It just this has been the ride. This was the stair steps, the stairway to the climb that we've been on, and the trajectory, I guess, is the best word. But um, holy crap! I to be honest, like as much as like we've been expecting and working towards this and building towards this, and it felt like this day would really never come, and it's cool that it's here.
Yeah, 100%, man. We were kind of chit chatting before we hit record, whatever, and we were, talking about how watching it, whatever, it wasn't like waterworks. It wasn't overflowing with tears, whatever. It was just more just being satisfied, happy, relieved. It was just like, I mean, we're just fans, whatever. But to me, it just felt like the weight was lifted. It was just a breath of fresh air. Uh, but yeah, 2021 surprise. You know, happy to be here, just soaking it in. 2022 was the fu to everybody, and just kind of repeating kind of what happened previous. And then this year was natty or bust. We're on a mission. We're gonna do it. Die trying, right? I know that was the line that he used last year, but or 2 years ago. But it's just awesome, just awesome sitting there watching this last month or so of football. Wolverines navigating the toughest part of their schedule, sometimes with their head coach, sometimes not, and they answer the call. So, counter stallions, no counter stallions, it just seemingly doesn't matter. This team was just built for this national championship run. They took advantage of the window of opportunity, and I mean, it's been pretty a spectacular ride. Honestly, it's so surreal, and made some good dollar bills on the game, sports betting wise. So kind of splurged a little bit on the natty apparel already. But yeah, man, it's good vibes, it's good feeling. And I said before, like I don't care about 24, I don't care about 25. I was just worried about 2023 and what this season was going to bring, whatever. And I'm gonna ride the coattails of this for the next few months, whatever. And um, it's been fun.
Yeah, I don't have a huge plan for how this podcast is going to go. I have several talking points and questions I have for you about what everything kind of means. But the one thing, weirdly enough, I've been trying to like look back and just really feel out this championship. And obviously, we didn't podcast last week. Um, you know, Michigan having to play Bama in the Rose Bowl felt like uh, it felt like the championship game for me. And it sounds crazy to say now because this feels great, but like I would have been content with just that. Like it
Yeah,
just felt like even that, like 14-0, Rose Bowl champions beating um not just not just Alabama, but it's Alabama,
yeah,
and what they mean to college football in our lifetime, and how they did it in that stage at the Rose Bowl. It felt huge, and the environment we were in was top notch, and we had a hell of a time. And coming into this game, this game really honestly felt very I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. I kind of had a feeling. I said this a couple different times, and then it made me feel good when Joe Klatt said it, but he said it in a way more respectful way. I said that this was a poor man's 2021 Ohio State. Joe Klatt just said that this team was constructed very similar to that team. He didn't actually take a shot at him. I kind of did, but Michael Penix is not as good as CJ Stroud, and these wide receivers are not as good as Ohio State's wide receivers. I felt great. I literally thought, I was like, this game could look similar to that.
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of looked a lot like 2021's game, where they just ran it a ton, passed it when they needed to, converted what they needed to, and the game got away late. Neither team scored as much, but I mean, a very similar style of game, honestly. But yeah, I mean, so many things. I like I said, I don't have. I don't know how this is all going to come out, but I posted this on Facebook, and I'll say it now. And there's lots of talking points, but when I met you, is through a flag football league. That flag football league for me lasted one season. There's a good chance I never speak to you again. There's lots of guys on that team I don't speak to ever again. But during that season, I learned you're a Michigan fan. I'm a Michigan fan. You invited me to tailgate with you that fall. Mm-hmm. And we've been kind of like fall husband, wife ever since, And Michigan football and football in general does that for people. And this has always meant a little bit more to me and to others, And if you're listening to this podcast, it probably means a little bit more to you. And kind of, so many different times, COVID specifically, where it's like, why am I watching this? Why do I do this to myself? And you just hope that one day the opportunity presents itself that you can be in this position and watch your team compete for the grandest prize. And that happened last night, and here we are to kind of talk about it. So it's surreal, but at the same time, it's like, this is literally why you're a fan, is to see them hopefully achieve the grandest prize. When you're a fan of said, this is going to come off like a shot, but it's not. If you're a fan of Toledo or Bowling Green or something like that, like, you're traditionally a fan because maybe you only went to the school. Like, you're not anticipating them ever winning a national championship. When you're a fan of a division school, like a Division I school, Power 5 school, like Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, like, you want to see them win, like you want your NFL team to win. So it's just it's a different feeling.
100%.
What's your initial, I guess, like, spill your thoughts, man, on just Michigan overcoming the ultimate odds and winning? Like, what does it initially feel to you today? What kind of things were running through your mind last night? Like, I'd like to hear your opinion. Obviously, I wasn't with you, so.
Yeah, well, like you said, like with the Rose Bowl, it was a lot more emotional, and that was because of all what Bama stands for and Nick Saban and that stigma, and how the run that he's put that program on since he arrived there. Plus, what I've spoke on this season is the window of opportunity of what a traditional old school style Michigan season could be. Win the Rose Bowl, beat your rivals, win the Big Ten, blah 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 blah. And then now Natty, it just almost felt like the cherry on top. So it would have been a bummer if we would have lost this game, but I would look at the silver linings of beating Alabama and winning the Rose Bowl. That's, to me, still an accomplishment of its own. And but yeah, this game was great. Wasn't pacing a whole bunch. I think I did that for maybe 5 minutes because the clock was winding down. Washington was kind of driving the ball, and then boom, Mikey Sanders still picks him off, and it kind of seals it. But yeah, it feels great just to be a fan, and we've come to love our favorite Block M, our program. And, you know, I, as a fan of the hockey and the basketball, seeing these big three like the big three, I call it, you know, being so close to winning a national championship for so long and not being able to do it. Like basketball just seems to be the king of runner up, and hockey just seems like they get to the Frozen Four and then don't freaking win. And then Michigan, like up until these last 3 years, just cannot consistently beat the rivals, just find ways to let you down. And then when they go ahead and then do it this way, win 15-0, be the first Big Ten team to go 15-0, first in school history. It's just, man, it dots the I's and crosses the T's everywhere. So while the rivalry fan bases are out there still trying to drag everything down, it doesn't matter. They can go fuck themselves. Michigan slapped ass, whether he was on the sidelines or not. So that's what's more satisfying than everything. Because if Michigan would have come unglued after mid-October, I don't know where my mental state would be at right now, but it didn't matter. They kept persevering. You know, it's been a hell of a ride. And like I said, I don't really give a shit yet about 2024 or 2025. I'm just kind of reveling in this moment and just enjoying it, man.
Let's talk a little bit about the game. So Michigan loses the coin toss. Washington defers. Michigan gets the ball. And Michigan starts to move the ball a little bit of Blake Corum, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Khalil Mullings ends up coming in. And that's when I kind of text you in the group, and I'm like, at this point, I kind of felt sorry for Donovan. Like we're 6-7 plays in, and Donovan hadn't seen the field, and Blake's off. And I literally was like, I'm so sad for Donovan, or I feel sick for Donovan, or something like that. And I literally look up, Donovan's coming in the game, and I'm like, oh, Donovan, and he houses it. And you're like, say what? Like, what the hell just happened? That moment right there was, for me, the most emotional moment of the entire game, because it's what we've said all along. Donovan's a big game player. Donovan has struggled in all these moments. We need a Donovan moment. We thought it would come in the Rose Bowl. It didn't. You predicted it on your pregame for the show. It's like Donovan had to be big in this. And he comes off big. They get the ball back. And he houses another one. And at this point, I'm losing my damn mind. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, holy cow. And truthfully, at that moment, I didn't get too cocky. I'm like, things are great, but let's settle down. When they got the ball back again, and it's 14-3, and Blake busts off the 59er, I was like, that's it. That's a wrap. Like, at that point, the game is over, and they're going to coast to a victory, which they pretty much did at that point. I mean, initial feelings after the first quarter. Where were you at after the first quarter?
Man, I was hyped. I was absolutely hyped. But you're right. When Donovan Edwards busts out that first one, God, did I feel so happy for that kid, because he is, you know, he did an interview for the pre-festivities, you know, days leading up to the game, saying that he's been doing a mental health counselor because, you know, that's where he's at. You know, he just obviously understands that he's just not living up to where he was last season. And so that football is a lot of the, obviously, is mental aspects too, especially when guys are coming back from an injury like Blake Corum. Like, the whole mental thing shows up because you are thinking about, like, am I going to perform as good? What happens if I cut once? Is my knee going to blow up in my face? You know? So to see him go out there and bust out those two runs, man, I just felt so happy for the kid. You know, I've met him personally at an autograph signing and stuff like that. And it's just awesome to see, obviously. But the end of the first quarter, man, I was like, oh, I mean, I wasn't trying to get ahead of myself and thinking blowout right away, but I just said, just keep getting 7 points. You know, we kicked 2 field goals in between the touchdowns and everything. I'm like, man, I was like, we have to put these guys away. That was my only gripe, was we let them hang around a little bit too long, and Alabama was a little bit closer, but with Washington, I just felt like, man, we gotta get 7 points here. We can't let them whittle their way back.
Yeah, well, the next, second and third quarter, they outscore us 10-6 and cut into the lead a little bit. But it's like, truthfully, going into the fourth quarter, I still wasn't scared. They hadn't trailed the entire game, and Washington wasn't able to do anything. It's just like, and even when they had their spots, they missed them. Michael Penix missed Rome Odunze on a wide open, was it fourth down?
It was like 4th and 7, yeah.
Yeah, and they get the exact play they want, the exact look they want. They get the open receiver, their best player on their team outside of maybe Michael Penix, and Penix overthrows him. And it's just like, this is Michigan's night at this point. It seemed like nothing Washington could do. Coming out of the second half, Will Johnson making Will Johnson plays, making his stamp on the game. He obviously gets a pick. They get 3 out of that. They end up coasting into the fourth quarter when they're down 27-13, and Penix sails one to Mikey Sanderstill. And at that point, it's game over. Michigan's winning the Natty. I mean, that's very simple at this point.
Yeah.
And actually, let's back up a little bit. So the first Blake Corum score, that pretty much all locks in that you're winning the money. What's the feeling there?
Dude, I was so hyped. When he bounced outside, he's literally just like maybe 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. I was like, oh, touchdown. And when he got in, I was like, just win the ball game, baby. I won that money, right? So I was super excited. But that one drive where they didn't get a touchdown and he busted out the 50-yarder, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be it. They're going to drive, and it didn't happen. So we're getting later in the game. I was like, man, am I going to put all this money on this game and like it come down to like the one time that Blake doesn't score? I'm like, F me. And then it happens. But I was super excited. So speaking of running backs, though, the one I'm sure we'll get into our ups and downs in a second, but like the one thing I thought was really appalling by Washington was, I understand that he's like your lead bell cow running back and stuff like that, but I felt that was pretty reckless for Kalen DeBoer to leave Dillon Johnson in there. He's literally playing on 1 foot, possibly going to be in the NFL, and you're just going to keep letting him run out there and just beat his ass to his own self to the ground. Like the longest run he had of the game was 7 yards. And like, I understand he's like one of your best offensive weapons, but at some point it's like, dude, you predicate your offense on the pass. Is it really this important to have Dillon Johnson out there just kill himself for, 1 or 2 plays? I mean, he already went out of the game at least twice in this one, like hobbling, leaning over, Winston in pain. The guy left in the booth, the Sugar Bowl. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know how you felt about that. I just thought that was kind of reckless.
I knew he came into the game injured, correct?
Yeah, apparently he's been dealing with it for a month.
Yeah, so he came into the game injured, and then he gets kind of rolled up on a pass protection play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't.
He was in a freaking boot after the fucking Sugar Bowl.
I know. I'm not gonna beat him up for playing because it's like it's his last game,
right.
And Washington at this point feels that they're underdogs, which they correctly were. Yeah, I see what you mean. I guess at the end of the day, it's like they're just trying to make something happen, and Rome Odunze, their best player, went for 5 for 87. There was a lot of screens and underneath in there. They could not get him deep. They couldn't get him open. So I understand why they needed what they felt was one of their best players out there. So I get it. I get it both ways. But yeah, Mikey ends up picking it off. He takes it back, 85 yards, or is that what they said? Something damn near the whole field, where Blake ends up finishing it off, scoring record-setting touchdown 27. Michigan wins the Natty. J.J. McCarthy honestly plays a pretty average game. Does have a really big, 2 really big runs in the second half. We'll highlight that a little bit. But outside of that, he plays a pretty average game. Nothing crazy. Doesn't throw any touchdowns. Doesn't run any in. Very ball control. But after the game, JJ's one of the first person that gets interviewed, and obviously, when it comes to reminiscing, you got to talk about before he even really steps foot on campus, he sends out what's now a world famous tweet. During the COVID season, it's like everybody just take 3 deep breaths, okay? Just everyone chill out. Things are going to turn around, and boy was he right. So kudos to him. Harbaugh feels like he's on top of the world at the end of this game, but at the same time, I think he's a little just like he felt overwhelmed.
Yeah,
he felt like it was a lot for him at that moment. People all around him, and of course, everybody's got to. What about your future? What can we just live in the moment for a minute?
Yeah.
So, after the game, what was the initial feeling, my man?
Well, like I said, just happiness. The tears joy really came for the Rose Bowl, but this one just felt satisfying. Like I said, it was just a breath of fresh air. But my cousin came over, and he when he came over, he brought over a party pack, and he called it the victory bag. He says we can't open it until after the game, and it was a bottle of champagne and some stogies. So popped the bottle of champagne, enjoyed it with him and some of the boys, and we left, went to the local bar real quick, smoked the stogies, had some drinks, and just kind of just reveled in everything. But it was great to see. It was great. It's kind of cool to see, Jim to get his dad Jack on the podium, whatever, and say who's got it better than us. And obviously, Jim uses that as a team mantra that a lot of the rival fan bases, try to tear down or whatever, make fun of. But that came from when him and his dad and his brother were on recruiting trips at Michigan. And so they were just they're a football family, they're football guys, they're just driving around to recruits' houses or whatever, coaching, so, that's where it all came from. So it's pretty cool to see John Harbaugh there. And, yeah, man, it was a good time. I wish I was able to make it there. Flights were stupid expensive. And, but either way, I was able and lucky enough to go to the last 3 Big Ten championships. I got to see a bowl game, even though they lost to Georgia at the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. So it was all in all still a fun 3 years, and I hope we obviously see more of it, whatever. But it was fulfilling.
Anything more on this game? Because I have a lot of side topics.
No, we can get on the side topics right now. Let's go.
What do I want to start with? Let's start here. Let's reminisce a little bit. Where do you feel the turnaround started?
2021.
No, I agree. But is there I guess I'm asking, maybe can you pinpoint a time?
I
have a couple different theories, I guess.
It can't. Well, the turnaround obviously on paper it started in 2021, but it really came down to, Joe Klatt talked about it on the show. He said, Jim made a call to his brother John. They got Mike Macdonald in to be their defensive coordinator. They made coaching staff changes.
Yeah.
And they decided to put more emphasis on the culture of their locker room, more player oriented. And I really think it started with the players themselves, the open-mindedness that Jim had with that. And, so one of the critiques I had with him in years prior to 2020, even, is like this dude was a Heisman finalist quarterback at Michigan. He grew up with Bo Schembechler being his stepdad, basically. Like, why did it take all the way till 2021 to finally decide to treat the November games a little bit more differently than just another game? So I think it's as simple as that. Just player oriented, coaching staff changes, and the emphasis on everything. And then I think another little niche, another little wrinkle we talked about it in a recent show was the Georgia drill. Something that wasn't necessarily geared to just Georgia, but something where you want to get yourself put the bar of expectations and the level of play where they're at. That they're at the mountaintop. Let's get to the mountaintop. You know, they 2021 were like, we want to get to where Ohio State's at. Beat Ohio State. 2022, we want to get to where Georgia's at. Didn't quite get there, but they got to the playoff again. Boom, where are they at now? They're the king of the mountaintop.
Yeah, what you're saying is pretty much very similar. I was going to say it's very much Aiden Hutchinson ruling, just like asking himself to be wrung out in the weight room, leading by example, creating a player-led locker room culture, playing for one another, and taking games more serious. Ohio State, Georgia, and whatever it may be. Are there some games you point to in 2021 where maybe you've seen it for the first time?
Well, I mean, people could go back and listen to those episodes. 2021 for me was the road games. It was the road game in Lincoln, Nebraska. That was the game when I remember we did the episode. I said, listen, I was like, prior to 2021, that game was Michigan losing. Guess what? Scott Frost is there. The crowd's into it. They're undefeated at that point. They're like, what, 3-0 or 4-0, whatever. They got the energy. It's a night game. And Michigan stumbles here or there, whatever, but they rebound. They don't let it snowball affect them and take them out of the game. You know, they take that crowd noise, whatever, and they harness it themselves, and they come up and get the win. Then they went on the road again to Madison, do the same thing. At that point, they hadn't won in Madison in freaking like 15 years. So I think those two games were really the beginning of something where like, holy crap, like this team, like you can call Nebraska or Wisconsin, you know, blue bloods or not, you know, but on the road in a hostile environment in a game generally in which they would lose or find a way to shoot themselves in the foot, they came out on top. And I think that really was that point in time where you're like, all right, yeah, this team is different.
Yeah, for me it was two things. Weirdly enough, the Washington game at home.
Yeah.
We're there, tailgating, having a great night. And we've tailgated many games. That one you could hear the stadium all night long. Super loud that night. And it was almost a very weird changing of the guard in Michigan Stadium where it's known for being very quiet. It was that game that set the tone for later that year against Ohio State and bringing that energy, bringing the loudness. And second one for me, Camp Randall, the jump around, like just embodying what the team needed to be at that moment and kind of turning into whatever it needs to build energy. Those two things stand out to me early on in 2021. Next question, we'll get more into the current here. If Jim Harbaugh leaves, first off, let's start here. What do you think happens? Final prediction.
Well, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, which is the NCAA investigation. I told you around the Penn State game, I felt like Jim was going to be on his way out to the NFL. People were going to get promoted, that being Kirk Campbell, Sherrone Moore, Jesse Minter might stay or take another NFL position or maybe go on college ranks and go take over a school himself. With it now, with so much potential turnover on this team, I mean, even juniors like Junior Colson, you know, who have an ability to go pro. And, you know, he was, I think, rated the 4th best linebacker on the board right now. Like, if like guys like that decide to go, like, does Jim feel the need, like, you know, my job is done here? A lot of the guys that I've recruited and I've been with for the last 4 or 5 years are going to be all leaving. Is it just kind of like we even said it earlier this year, kind of the last dance feel?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I still think that there's a very good possibility that he's going to be done. He's already hired an agent again. And I think that there's still a very good possibility that Sharon Moore is going to get, as long as, if he leaves, he's going to talk to probably the athletic director in Santa Ono. Be like, listen, promise me that Sharon Moore is going to be next. Promise me that these guys are going to move up, blah, blah, blah. And I think he's just going to go on to the NFL. He might stay. But again, if he does stay, that looming NCAA investigation is there. And that shot or that possibility that where he does not be a coach on Saturdays is there. So, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I just think though.
Sorry, but there, I forgot to say there was that. Was it he was doing the Scott Van Pelt interview? I think it was, and he did something where he basically said, "Is like, how long are you gonna enjoy this? Whatever." He's like, normally around Valentine's Day we get back to our football operations because we love football. And then he smiled, and then he goes, "Well, I think this might be a couple months. I think maybe we pick things back up in the springtime." So you're like, because every time someone asks him a question about the future, he kind of uses innuendos and deflects or whatever. And I don't blame him. Quite frankly, I'd probably be freaking annoyed that I keep getting asked this question all the time, but like rightfully so. Someone asked him about his future, and he's like, "Well, I hope to be coaching." Okay, open-ended answer. So, but yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Let's be realistic here. Let's play devil's advocate. Dan, if you wanted a promotion from your boss, let's say you're hired in a contract, which employees like ours aren't, but let's just hypothetically say your contract's ending, okay? Would you tell everybody that asks that you're coming back? No, you play hard to get.
Yeah.
Women have been doing this till the end of time. You play hard to get. You create what's called leverage.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird how he was offered a 5-year, like, $60 million deal, and then all of a sudden it's 10 years, 125? Weird how that leverage just doubles like that.
Yeah.
Maybe he's going to wait till he's offered 10 years, 150. At the end of the day, nobody in the world has more leverage than Jim Harbaugh right now.
Yeah.
Nobody. So I don't know. Part of me thinks Jim is literally coming back, and this is where he's going to die.
Yeah.
He's turned a new leaf, and in Michigan football is where he's going to finish his career. Part of me thinks this was always the end, no matter what, this cycle here, and then he was going to go.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I'm waiting it out. But the follow-up question, and you kind of maybe answered it already. Who would be your pick to be the head coach? So I hear a lot of Jesse Minter, and to be honest, yeah, I don't want that dude leaving Ann Arbor. If that means he's got to be the head coach, I would honestly let Sharon Moore leave before I'd let Jesse Minter leave.
I would prefer Jesse Minter over Sharon Moore, and it's only, again, we're just fans. We don't know what's going on in the headsets,
No, we don't.
But sometimes, like especially when Jim was out, sometimes the play calling under Sharon Moore it's just head scratching at
Yeah.
Like the running of the 32 straight times at Penn State. I understand why you did that. You're basically neutralizing Chop Robinson and Penn State's strength, which was their edge rushers. But I mean, come on. Even the 2 drives right before halftime in the Natty, I don't understand the decision making. Again, that could be partially Jim Harbaugh, but when we've seen Sharon Moore call games, I don't know. I would support him if he was head coach.
Of course. He did, and let me be very clear.
Yeah.
He deserves the job.
Yeah.
He would deserve the job.
But I definitely would not withhold my critiques of him. But I'd rather have Jesse Minter there, but it's not nothing like a deal breaker. But I don't want Jesse to leave either. So we got to do whatever it takes to keep him here. But I think Kirk Campbell is an offensive coordinator in the wings himself. So that was another person who I was kind of hinting that would get a promotion as well. But yeah,
what about Jed Fish, Arizona?
That would be great to give him back here. I mean, if people don't remember, he was the 2015 OC, and then I don't know what happened, but he ended up bouncing out of town. So I don't know. I don't remember what the reasoning was behind it.
I think he went back to the Patriots, didn't he?
No, he's the head coach of Arizona.
And when he left Michigan,
I think he went to UCLA. I think it was.
Is that where he went?
Something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
He was with New England too at some point.
Was he?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, either way,
I'm obviously just throwing this on you here. 2021, 2022, 2023. Let's get a little ranking. Okay. We're going to do two different rankings here. First one's games. I'm just going to say them, and if you disagree, feel free to disagree. 1, Natty.
Boom.
2, Rose Bowl.
Boom.
3, 2021 Michigan, Ohio State.
Boom.
4 and 5, whatever you want. It's 2021 Big Ten Championship, 2022 Michigan, Ohio State. Agree or disagree? Those are the 5.
I'd probably, because I was there personally, I would probably put the Big Ten Championship at 4, and then the 5th one would be the Ohio State 2022.
You do agree that's the other one, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Winning in Columbus for the first time in 20 years. Yeah, it's got to be it. Okay. This one I think is a little more argumentative. Same time frame. Legacy players. 5-1. I can say mine and you can agree or disagree, or you can do your own list or whatever, or you can listen to whatever you want to do.
Okay.
1, Blake. 2, Hutch. 3, Mikey. 4, JJ. 5, is either, it's kind of a toss-up. 5 is probably Hassan Haskins.
All right. Well, is this because of that one tweet that Josh Ogle had online? He put out a top 5 list of the Jim Harbaugh era.
Yeah, and to be honest, like that one's pretty subjective because it is very hard to so that one right there, it was very hard for me to respond to because there are guys from 2015 to 2020 that deserve to be on the list. But I would feel very hard pressed to include any of them over anybody that wasn't on 21, 22, or 23.
Right.
So, like, Jabril Peppers deserves to be on that list. Can't be on the list. He just can't. There's no place for him.
Right. Right. So your list, you essentially you're in like this time period, right?
This is just 21 to 23.
All right. So I'll start with 5, and I answered Josh on a subtweet, and I'll just kind of repeat it, whatever, because I answered it how you're asking it, not necessarily what he's going through here. So I did a scapegoat here, and I did a tie for 5th, and it was JJ and Donovan Edwards at 5. 4th was Mikey Sainristil. 3rd was Hassan Haskins. 2, Aiden Hutchinson, and then 1, obviously, BC, Blake Corum.
Yeah, so for me, the reason I couldn't put Hassan higher than 5 is because he only played the 1 year under this regime. And don't get me wrong, he had a massive impact. I just think Hutch had a little bit more of an impact.
Yeah.
And Mikey and JJ have just absolutely cemented themselves as 100% staples of this three. I mean, JJ literally has quite the storybook, really. I mean, the freshman year coming in very limited roles and even costing us the Michigan State game, and to then coming in and never losing when Blake Corum's in the lineup, by the way. There's a stat for you. They never lost a game that Blake Corum was in the lineup with him. So, yeah. Donovan Edwards, I think that's the one that I didn't include. We had the exact same 5. I just didn't put the Don in there. So, if I had to do 6, I would probably put the Don, but honestly, that would be a tie with also probably Colson Loveland. Not Colson Loveland, Junior Colson.
Mm-hmm.
Or we maybe have to start talking about linemen, Zach Zinter, things like that. But I think we mostly agree. That's all I got. What else? Anything else on your mind here?
There was something on my mind about 5 or 10 minutes ago, whatever, but I can't remember it. But I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. Not a big deal.
Just to recap, this season overall, just it starts off exactly as we thought. We're gonna railroad everybody. It's basically everybody that's in front of us until we get to Ohio State. I'm sorry, we go to Happy Valley. We have a hell of a time. Great brotherhood there. Obviously, the sign stealing shit comes up this season and kind of just like puts a complete damper on the season. And at one point, both of us are questioning whether or not we're going to continue to root for this team. And it just gets to a point where Ohio State comes to town again. They finish them off, win another Big Ten championship. We park ourselves at the Brown Jug. Watch the Rose Bowl and as great as that was, and then the national championship. It's just like this season it's gone in a blink. We love football. We love Michigan, and it feels like it literally just started, and it's already over. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And I remember what I was going to say was when we were talking about the head coaching stuff. It's like until Jim Harbaugh signs this freaking contract and it's public, I'm living on this in 2 ways. One, I'm a Raiders fan, and it seems like every goddamn year, the last recent memory, that Jim Harbaugh is like the top 3 in Mark Davis's phone number records right now, and I'm like, oh my god, like I just if Jim Harbaugh becomes a Raider, it's like I'm just tied to this dude for the rest of my life. But yeah, man, it's definitely was a season to remember, and just like that, the lights are flick the light switch, the season's over with. I'll just reiterate, I'm glad this team didn't come unglued and stayed unified and did what they did, because Michigan basketball is hot garbage. They're straight ass. And if Michigan football would have got derailed and then I would have been watching a shitty Michigan basketball team, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I'd be like, can't wait for this Tigers 3rd place in American Central this year, So yeah, that's where I'm at, man. And real quickly too is Corum is going to probably go down and probably in a lot of Michigan fans' favorites, their Mount Rushmores. He's going to be number 1 in 2 categories for sure, and that's 27 rushing touchdowns in one single season and 58 career rushing touchdowns. So number 1 in both those. And whether JJ comes back next year or not, right now he's 5th in Michigan all-time passing yards and passing touchdowns, right behind Denard Robinson. So you got 2 guys that really led this charge here for obviously JJ was number 2 2021, but the catalyst.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually brought that up. I wanted to talk about that. The two that are pretty much have always gotten the love.
Yeah.
Woodson and Desmond. Does Blake have an argument for one? Because I think he does.
Like for being the best Wolverine ever?
I think he has an argument.
Yeah. Yeah. And what really sucks is he wasn't a part of one Ohio State game. But outside of that, yeah, he's definitely up there. Like if I had as we were bouncing each other the question of our own Mount Rushmore last night after the game before we went to the bar, and I was like, for me personally, like we did 3 Mount Rushmores. We did the coaches one, the realistic players one, and then your favorite Michigan players one. And that second one where we actually pick realistic players, I said you can go a lot of ways with it, of course. Depends on your era that you grew up watching, but like I said, Dez and Woodson, and I said Blake Corum is got to be in that top 4 for me, honestly.
I don't know what the argument would be against him.
Yeah.
And my argument for putting him over Charles would be Blake Corum was a knee injury away from winning the Heisman. He was going to win the Heisman last year. It was damn near going to be his. He wouldn't have lost it had he finished the season. Let's just say that. Everybody else had imploded around him. He would have won the Heisman. So it's like, if that's the one thing that Charles has over him, they both won national championships. Like Blake Corum just put together the single greatest offensive season in the history of Michigan. I mean, just an absolute. By the way, I don't know if you kind of said this, but not only did he score the most touchdowns, he became the highest scorer of any season, more than any kicker. Jake Moody had just set this record. Yeah. He passed Jake Moody because he scored so much.
Yeah.
So he's easily Mount Rushmore. I think he has an argument for one. And I've always thought it's crazy that Charles Woodson's number's not retired. We need to get 2 off the field.
Yeah.
If you want to put Woodson and Corum both, I don't care. People shouldn't be wearing 2 anymore. That needs to be done.
Let's be honest. If number 11 is retired because of the Weissert brothers from leather helmet days, I think number 2 should be hung up. And it's too bad that stadium doesn't have like more structures around the ring of the stadium, because they obviously don't have like the numbers or the names of passing, great players and stuff like that. But I think they need to do something like that for sure.
Real quick, I don't know the answer to this. How do they celebrate national championships? Like, they're not going to hang a banner, right?
No, I think really the most you're going to get out of it is if you go and walk in Schembechler Hall. That's really the only time they have a football style trophy case. And if you walk inside Chrysler, that's connected, and it's connected to M-Den and stuff like that. And you can weave around your way, and they'll have like probably like a chest of some kind of memorabilia that you can take a picture of. But yeah, I think that's about the most you get to the public.
Yeah, they need to find a way to hang some banners up.
Right.
So, anything else, my man?
I don't know. I wanna keep chit chatting, but I don't really have anything else, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's over. It's up and done. But yeah.
Yeah, this season could have lasted forever, and I'd have been okay with it. I'll remember it forever for a lot of reasons. This whole stretch run I've remembered. So, every piece of this. And what the crazy thing is, dude, is like after winning it now, it kind of makes next year almost more fun because it's like it's going to be so different in how the season is approached. Like you're the reigning champs, but you're also a completely different team. Like this team's going to have a big makeover. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
With the new Big Ten, it's just like kind of gives me a re-energy. And even if they were to lose 2 games, I don't think I'd lose my head. It's just like realistically, I believe Oregon's the favorite to win the Big Ten next year, and the schedule that we have and how things have played out with or without Harbaugh. I mean, there's so many storylines, and it just makes next season that much more fun, really.
Yeah,
this new way of football.
Because obviously we're the day after the Natty, right? So we don't know. Obviously, the coaching's who's staying, who's going. But as of right now, I'm kind of looking at like 2024. I know I said I don't really give a crap about it, but seriously though, I feel like I can. Again, this change, but I just feel like I can go into 2024 with a mental mindset of I'm just here to just kind of enjoy it, not get overly indulged and let myself get devastated if we don't win the Big Ten again. You know what I'm saying? So like,
no, I know exactly what you mean. That's how I feel.
Right. So like when we go to Champaign, where the plan is to go to the Illinois road game, whatever. Like when I go there, like no matter what our record is up to that point, like I'm just going to be able to. I just feel like I want to go in there, most likely see it win anyway, but just go there and just kind of really enjoy the game. So yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because the pressure of how we feel as fans to once again beat Ohio State, once again beat the Big Ten championship, once again try to win a playoff game. Like it's already been done 2-3 times over on some of these things. So
right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And then can we also agree that we should probably do one more episode regarding this season and hand out awards? And I know last year we did our key plays of the season. I feel like we should do that.
Yeah, I definitely want to do that. I want to wait a week or two. I'd love to see what happens with Jimbo. Yeah. But, we may not find out. It may be some time here, to be honest. Yeah. So regardless, we'll get an episode in here soon, and that'll be a lot of fun. So, and maybe, just maybe, we have another series coming this summer. Who knows? We had a lot of fun with last year's series, and maybe we'll put some work into that and get something like that rolling. So, all right, my man. It's Tuesday. We're the national champions. There's no other way around it. So, thank you for everything this season. It's been a blast, and catch you next time.
Go Blue.
Real talk. Go Blue.